It was a dark, moonless night as I drove down the winding road. The headlights of my car barely cut through the thick fog that enveloped everything in sight. I had been driving for hours, and the road seemed to stretch on forever. As I rounded a sharp bend, I saw a sign that read, "Welcome to Nowhere." I chuckled to myself, thinking it was just a quirky name for a town, but as I continued down the road, the signs became more ominous. "Beware the fog," one warned. "Turn back now," another pleaded. But I pressed on, the fear creeping up my spine like a cold, clammy hand. Suddenly I saw a figure standing in the middle of the road. It was a woman, her face obscured by the fog. I slammed on the brakes, my heart pounding in my chest. "Help me," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of my car engine. I got out of the car, my legs trembling. The woman was drenched in a dark liquid that I couldn't quite identify. She pointed down the road, her hand shaking. "They're coming," she said, her voice filled with terror. I looked down the road and saw a horde of shadowy figures approaching. Their eyes glowed red, and they moved with a speed that was unnatural. I turned to run back to my car, but it was already too late. The figures surrounded me, their laughter echoing in the night. "Welcome to Nowhere," they chanted in unison. And that's when I realized the true meaning of the signs. They were warnings, not of the fog, but of the horrors that awaited those who dared to venture down this cursed road. I was trapped in nowhere. There was no escape. It was a dark and stormy night, the kind of night that sends shivers down your spine and makes you question the existence of a benevolent God. I was driving down a lonely country road, the kind of road that seems to stretch on forever, with nothing but the occasional flickering streetlight to keep you company. As I rounded a bend, I saw a sign that sent a chill down my spine. It was a simple, unassuming sign, but there was something about it that made my blood run cold. "Beware," it read, in faded, peeling letters. "The beast is coming." I laughed nervously to myself, thinking it was just some kind of a prank, some bored teenager's idea of a joke. But as I continued down the road, I saw more signs, each one more ominous than the last. "Heed the warning," one said. "Turn back now," another pleaded. I should have listened. I should have turned around and gone back the way I came. But I was stubborn, and I pressed on, my heart pounding in my chest. The road became narrower, the trees closing in on either side, until I felt like I was driving through a tunnel of darkness. And then, I saw it. The beast. It was a massive, hulking creature with glowing red eyes and razor-sharp teeth. It stood in the middle of the road, blocking my path, and I knew in that moment that I was doomed. I slammed on the brakes, my car skidding to a stop just inches from the creature. It let out a deafening roar, and I could feel the heat of its breath on my face. I was frozen in terror, unable to move, unable to think. But then, as quickly as it had appeared, the beast was gone. Now the road was clear, the signs were gone, and I was alone once again. I don't know how long I sat there, my hands gripping the steering wheel, my heart racing. But eventually I found the strength to start the car again, and I drove away from that cursed road and the terrible creature that lurked within. I never told anyone what I saw that night. I never spoke of the beast or the signs that warned of its coming. But I knew, deep down, that I had been given a glimpse of something truly evil, something that lurked just beyond the edge of our world. And I knew that I would never forget the sign of the beast. It was a crisp autumn day, and the leaves were just starting to turn. I was driving down a winding country road, enjoying the scenery, when I saw the first sign. It was small and hand-painted, with the words "Fresh Apples" scrawled in red. I smiled to myself, thinking of the pies my grandmother used to make. As I drove further, more signs appeared: pumpkin patch, hay rides, and corn maze. It was like a fall festival had sprung up along the road. Eventually I couldn't resist the temptation, so I pulled over and followed the signs. The path led me through a field, and as I walked, the signs changed. "Beware," one said. "Danger ahead," another warned. I laughed, thinking it was a clever way to add some spookiness to the festivities. This was around Halloween after all. But then the signs started to get darker. "Don't look back," one said. "They're watching you," another warned. I felt a chill run down my spine, but I kept walking. Finally I reached the end of the path. There was a small, dilapidated barn, and the final sign said, "Enter at your own risk." I hesitated, but curiosity got the better of me. I pushed open the door and stepped inside. The barn was empty, except for a single chair in the middle of the room. On the chair sat a doll, its eyes wide and unblinking. I felt a wave of unease wash over me, but I couldn't look away. And then, the doll blinked. I screamed and ran out of that barn like there was no tomorrow. I ran back down the path, all the way to my car. Inexplicably, the signs were gone, and the field was empty. I jumped in my car and drove away as fast as I could. To this day, I don't know what was in that barn, what those signs meant. But I'll never forget the feeling of dread that filled me as I stared into the doll's eyes. Once upon a time, in the heart of a long, winding road trip, my family and I found ourselves in the eerie embrace of an unknown highway. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the asphalt as we cruised through the desolate landscape. We had been driving for hours, our destination still far away, and the monotony of the road was beginning to take its toll. As we rounded a bend, a signpost loomed into view, its rusty metal creaking in the wind. "Beware the lost," it warned cryptically. My father scoffed at the sign, dismissing it as a prank or a local legend meant to scare off outsiders. But as we continued our journey, the signs grew more frequent and more ominous. "Turn back now," one proclaimed, its letters dripping with a sinister red paint. My mother, always the voice of reason, suggested we pull over and consult the map, but my dad insisted we press on. The road seemed to stretch endlessly before us, an asphalt serpent winding its way through the barren landscape. As night fell, the signs grew more desperate, their messages scrawled in a frenzied hand. "They're coming for you," one read, its words illuminated by our headlights. My sister, usually the brave one, whimpered in the back seat, clutching her teddy bear tightly. Then the air grew thick with tension as we passed another sign, this one more chilling than the rest. "You're already lost," it seemed to taunt us, its words echoing in the darkness. I could see my father's grip on the steering wheel tightening, and his knuckles turned white. Suddenly, the car sputtered and died, leaving us stranded in the middle of the road. The headlights flickered, casting eerie shadows across the asphalt. My father cursed under his breath, fumbling with the keys, but the engine refused to turn over. As we sat in the oppressive silence, the signs seemed to come alive, their words whispering in the night air. "You'll never leave," they taunted, their voices growing louder with each passing moment. My mother clutched my hand, her eyes wide with fear. Just as despair threatened to consume us, a faint light appeared in the distance. A small town, nestled among the hills, beckoned to us. We stumbled towards it, our feet dragging along the asphalt. The town was deserted, its buildings crumbling and abandoned. As we wandered through the empty streets, the signs seemed to follow us, their words taunting us from every corner. "You'll never escape," they whispered, their voices growing louder with each passing moment. Finally, we found ourselves standing before an old, abandoned church. Its doors creaked open, inviting us inside. As we stepped into the sanctuary, the signs fell silent, their words fading into the night. We huddled together in the flickering candlelight, our breaths coming in ragged gasps. The town, the signs, the car, it all seemed like a distant nightmare. But as we sat there, the silence was broken by a soft, chilling whisper. "You're already lost," the voice said, its words echoing in the darkness. We huddled closer, our hearts pounding in our chests. The next morning, we awoke to find ourselves back on the highway, our car idling by the side of the road. The signs were gone, their warnings erased from our memories. But as we drove away, the whispers lingered in the air, a haunting reminder of the night we spent lost on that desolate highway.